Another day, another shooting in Portland, and another suspect on the run. We're approaching a record number of homicides in the city. But do you know how many arrests have been made? Or rather, how many haven't, even when a murder goes viral?
Yeah, I lost a little brother.
My daughter lost her dad.
And I refuse to let him go as a statistic. Like, he has a name.
And speaking of ongoing problems, the city is trying to clear out a homeless camp next to a school before kids head back next week.
People do value kids.
Doesn't make it any less sad, though, because they don't really have anywhere to go.
And you might have seen some ads recently from a group talking about, well, gun violence and homelessness in Portland. So who exactly are they, and what are they trying to do? Here's the story. And I'm Dan Haggerty. Thank you so much for being with us. We appreciate it as always. This is the show that wants to hear from you. Please let us know what is on your mind. We're talking about really big, important issues in this city, in this state, in this country, as we always do, and we do that because of your feedback. So tell us what you're thinking. Use the hashtag HeyDan on Twitter and email us at thestory@kgw.com. Let's get started. Let's talk big story. I'm going to start a little story of my own tonight. See, I was on Instagram last night. I was on my couch. We had just put the kids to bed. My wife was flipping through HBO or something, and someone shared a video with me, which viewers do all the time. But this is one, frankly, I wish I didn't see. It's been haunting me ever since. It's something I certainly didn't expect to see. It was a video of a murder in Portland. I have the video right now on my phone. Don't worry, I'm not going to show it to you. Trust me, you don't want to see it. It's been taken down from Instagram. It's not on there anymore, which some of you may know, because I'm certainly not the only person who's seen this video. A lot of you have seen it. Apparently, it's gone kind of locally viral. It shows a fight outside of this 7-Eleven near Lents Park. This is some video that we got of the scene after the shooting. But on the cell phone video that shows kind of how this all played out, it starts with a scuffle. A bunch of girls actually fighting, punching, pulling hair, that sort of thing. When a few guys come over and they break up that fight. Now, at that point in the video, it kind of seems like everything is over. I remember thinking to myself, why am I still watching this? When, out of nowhere, someone pulls a gun and fires it. This man. This is a still image of the gunman. Black pants, blue shirt, one shoe. He looks tall and thin, I think, maybe, but can you really be sure from this image? One thing I do know for sure is that he's still out there. A free man watching reports like this on his TV or phone or whatever, maybe. A person responsible for something so awful. The man he killed marked the 60th homicide this year, 30-year-old Johnny Polanco. He was a dad, as you can see in that first picture, which is always a trait that seems to stick out to me in stories like these. Today we talked to his family, and we wanted to know about what they're hearing from police about the search for his killer.
That video's out there. It's been seen thousands of times. It's been shared so many times. And Portland isn't big. I know somebody knows someone who knows someone in that video. The picture, those faces are clear as day.
What have you guys heard from police about the investigation?
That they have a couple leads, but nothing solidified, nothing solid. So we'll see. I called her yesterday just to touch base with everything, but still at square one, I guess. Johnny's like the 30th statistic in Portland, a homicide. 60th?
The 60th.
Yes, and I refuse to let him go as a statistic. Like, he has a name. His name is Johnny Polanco, and I will scream it till the day that someone is put behind bars for it.
2021 is on pace to be the most violent year in Portland's history, at least if homicides are the metric that you're using. There have been 61 so far. That puts us on pace to pass the previous record, which was 70 back in 1987. Now, we've talked a lot on this show about the staffing crisis at the Portland Police Bureau. And that staffing crisis includes homicide detectives, which means the vast majority of these homicides are still unsolved. Portland police were only able to give us some information for the first 6 months of the year, but here's what they said. Through the end of June, 15 arrests were made in connection to 49 homicide cases. That's about 30%, which means nobody's been arrested in 70% of our homicides. We did some of our own investigating too, and we were only able to find 11 people arrested in connection to the 61 homicides this year. 11. We also noticed something else that was a little concerning. Of those 11 arrests, only 2 suspects were arrested more than a month after the victim was found dead. So the vast majority were either arrested at the scene or within a couple of days or weeks after, which typically means that police probably knew who they were looking for, and they were convinced they had enough evidence for a conviction. And as you could probably guess, that would be difficult with this image alone. Police need more than just this, more than just a picture or a grainy video. They need witnesses. They need people to testify, and that has been a big problem. Let me give you an example. On Sunday, a bunch of people gathered at a vigil in Old Town for Jamari Herring, who was killed at a bar the night before. While they were there for his vigil, someone started shooting. Shots were fired. And when I say shots were fired, I mean shots were fired. Listen to the audio from this video from a building nearby. Police think that was about 50 rounds. And those bullets hit 5 people who amazingly all lived. I mean, how could anyone survive that spraying of bullets? It really is amazing. But here's the rub. Of those 5 victims who lived, and the number of witnesses who saw what happened and escaped, and the fact that this crime does seem to be connected in some way to the other shooting, not random, you'd imagine that police could get a start, maybe figure out who did this, and maybe figure it out quickly. But apparently, no one is talking. None of the witnesses talk to police. And if police have a suspect in mind, we haven't heard about it. Now, I'm not passing judgment here on anybody. I'm not in any of their shoes. But it should give you an idea of what we're up against as a community as we steadily climb the ranks to the deadliest year in this city's history. Now, earlier this year, we aired a special episode of the story called Understanding Gun Violence, where we looked at some of the factors driving this historic spike, how it's impacting us, how it's impacting our city, and some of the possible ways to solve this crisis. You can watch it right now if you're interested, or after this episode of the story on the KGW YouTube channel. Let's talk about homelessness for just a bit. I mean, we're talking about big picture issues right now, big problems, and homelessness is certainly one of them. And there's been a pattern that we've been noticing in our emails, the emails that you've been sending us from home. A lot of homeless camps have been putting down roots around schools. And when you think about it, it kind of makes sense, right? I mean, during the pandemic, kids were learning from home, so the buildings were pretty much empty. Well, now, for the first time since early 2020, kids are getting ready to head back to class in person. And our team learned in at least one case that means the homeless campers have to go. Here's Maggie Vespa.
In the last year, this has become a rare sight. Kids swarming a school's playground. Families were touring Southeast Portland's Sunnyside School before classes start next week. By that time, this homeless camp will be gone. Tuesday, biohazard crews cleaned up trash. They'll return Wednesday, they said, to clear everyone out. The city was blunt. After more than a year of remote learning, students at Portland Public Schools are headed back to class in person on September 1st. And this camp, a city spokesperson said, impedes transportation access for kids to access school, AKA, it blocks the sidewalk.
Well, it strikes me as tragic.
Campers were upset and busy packing. None wanted to talk to us. Alexander Dickens is an activist with the group Stop the Sweeps.
Because every time you pack somebody up and you get rid of some of their belongings, they're a little further step away from moving on and getting some kind of other help elsewhere. Because it's really tragic to have all of your stuff sort of packed up and set away.
It's worth noting Dickens is right. This camp is part of a clear pattern. Many came to Sunnyside from nearby Laurelhurst Park last month when the city cleared a camp of roughly 60 people. Less than half went into shelters and motels. Officials said many who declined talked about the shortage of long-term affordable housing, meaning they didn't want to move into a shelter if there was nowhere for them to go next.
There's a scarce amount, there's a limit. So there's a big wait list. That could be several years for some of those units.
And to be clear, nothing has changed since then. The city is still promising to open 6 safe rest villages, organized outdoor camps sometime this year, but no specific addresses or dates have been released. So for now, campers just keep moving from place to place. Neighbors who have been offering services to people in the camp hurt for them.
A lot of them, when I talk to them, they understand they don't want to be around kids because they understand that kids are afraid of them or that kids might not or shouldn't have drugs, in their midst. Doesn't make it any less sad, though, because they don't really have anywhere to go.
In a statement, a rep for Portland Public Schools called homelessness in Portland a humanitarian crisis, quote, particularly as we know some of our students are residents of some of the camps. She added the district is focusing on reopening schools safely, writing, we are in continued conversation with both the city of Portland and Multnomah County as they compassionately and with urgency address this issue. KGW asked the city how many homeless camps near schools crews are scheduled to clear in the coming days. We haven't received an answer.
Okay, Maggie Vespa joining us now. And Maggie, on that last point, we do have some indication as to how the city would move forward with other camps near schools.
Yeah, we definitely do. You might remember back, I think it was in June, the city council voted kind of on new criteria as to how they would prioritize camps that they want to clear. And it basically they did it by deprioritizing certain camps. They said that any camps that were more than 150 feet from elementary schools or middle schools and more than 100 feet from high schools would be lower priorities. The flip side of that are any camps that are closer than those kind of benchmark distances, those would be higher priorities and they would clear those faster. And the city confirmed that was the case with Sunnyside. They said it just met the criteria to be cleared. And so, that kind of tells us that moving forward, any camps that are like the one we saw today right next to schools, those will likely be cleared more swiftly just than they were in years past.
And to a point in your piece, these camps move regularly, but we have heard about others.
Yeah, we have. As you know, people have written in about one in particular, Cleveland High School, and campers around there. We went over to Cleveland today and we drove around it and around the field at Cleveland, which is a few blocks separate from the school. We really didn't see many camps. There were a couple of tents and RVs, but we're saying this on TV because we want people, if they know of camps that we should be checking in on, to email us about it. Tweet us with the info on that. Use the hashtag HeyDan. And we should note, no matter how you feel about the issue, we're doing this because we think it's really important to keep a close eye on how the city and how school districts handle this situation moving forward. Because while kids were remote learning for more than a year, as we know, our housing crisis seems to have gotten worse than ever. Dan?
Yeah, just one more facet of this new normal, as we're calling it. We'll keep an eye on it. Thanks, Maggie.
Exactly.
All right, has anyone seen this ad recently? It kind of looks like a political ad, if you ask me, even though we're not in election season. It talks about a bunch of problems in Portland, like the ones we've been talking about on this show. Then at the end, it says, quote, tell the politicians to do their jobs. And it directs you to a website, peopleforportland.org. So Charlie emailed us because he was curious about this group. And Charlie wrote and said, who are these people? They love to advertise, which means someone has money, during your show. We'll get to the money part in just a minute, but first, I want to answer your question. People for Portland is a nonprofit social welfare organization, which is different than a charity. It means that they do more political activities like advocacy and lobbying. It was founded by 2 political consultants, one from the Democratic side of things, one from the Republican side. And as you saw in their ad, they don't think our politicians are doing enough to address all the problems in this city. And they're not just talking about city council or the mayor. They're also talking about state lawmakers with districts touching Portland, as well as the governor and some party leaders who call Portland their hometown. And I talked to these political consultant guys about all of this last week.
And so we need the public to get involved. The biggest danger we have right now, by far, the biggest danger we have is that the public starts to become comfortably numb to the changes in this city. And we need to give people hope that there can be change and a way to express the advocacy of their opinions to force politicians to move. Once you start doing that, you'll find that when you get a couple of things done, cleaning up Portland, getting body cams on police officers, a whole cascade of things will start to follow behind it once people establish momentum.
Okay, here's the thing though. Voters just acted, right? Didn't they just do something? Didn't we just vote? There were a bunch of changes made to city council. Voters made Ted Wheeler the first mayor to get reelected in like 20 years. We passed a bunch of big things like an income tax to fund homeless services, universal preschool, a new police oversight board, a lot of things. Well, the group still polled Portlanders and found out that people don't think that leaders are doing enough even then. They think that more needs to be done, more to address the houseless crisis, more to address police reform and public safety, and to clean up the city. And they don't think that's going to happen the way things are going right now.
The voters of this region have been very generous in giving more time and giving lots more money. They haven't said no yet. Homeless tax, housing bonds, regional, citywide. But how many new housing units for the longer term housing solution are online when you net it out? It's a few hundred over several years because they're using old-fashioned systems to build this stuff, not treating it as if it's an emergency. You can't use the word crisis and emergency in every political speech you give and then not govern with a sense of crisis and emergency.
Now, let's go back to Charlie's email for just a minute about the money behind People for Portland. You might have seen the Oregonian publish this story with the headline, "Dark Money Group Launches Campaign to Push Portland Area Leaders for Results on Police Reform, Homelessness, Cleanup Efforts." Now, I know that term dark money sounds kind of insidious, but really what it means is that their donors are anonymous, which you may think is insidious. That's up to you. But it is totally legal. They don't have to report their donations because of their nonprofit status. And we asked the People for Portland about this, and they told us, quote, "People for Portland is legally organized like many other issue advocacy groups, including Planned Parenthood and Basic Rights Oregon, for the purpose of amplifying the voices of others. Just as donors to those other 501c4 organizations are anonymous, so are the donors to People for Portland. Donors don't deserve to be targeted personally for public speech." So there you go. Now, we don't know who is funding them. We'll never know who's funding them unless they tell us, but there you go. If you have any other questions about that group or about any other groups that you hear about out there, let us know. Use that hashtag, #HeyDan. We all had to deal with the extreme temperatures during the heat wave in June, but some places in Portland got hotter than others. And one of the reasons goes back to racist housing policies and the effects of redlining on the city today.
Every time I think about it, people died because they were hot in their homes. It makes no sense to me.
When the story continues. Hey, welcome back. I was just checking some questions and emails. I'll address a comment or two at the end of the show. Keep sending them at the story at kgw.com over email. Use that hashtag #HeyDan on Twitter. I also want to remind you about our Hey Help campaign. This week, we're asking you to please donate to the Belmont Goats. The farm is a nonprofit. They survive on public donations, and they were closed during the pandemic. They just reopened this past weekend in North Portland at North Syracuse and Macrum Avenue. To donate, just hold your phone's camera up to the QR code on your screen. It'll take you to the donation page, and you can go to kgw.com/heyhelp too to find a way to donate. Now, we've talked about urban heat islands before on this show. You may remember these are certain areas of the city that get hotter than others because of things like the type of housing there, the lack of trees and shade, the more concrete that they have. It's become a big problem when it gets really, really hot outside, like the extreme heat wave that hit the Northwest in June. Well, it turns out there is a bit of an overlap between heat islands and the racist practice of redlining. Natalie Swaby has a look at that connection in both Portland and Seattle.
It is so hot.
This Portland native goes by one name, Bird.
Hi, how are you?
And she's on one mission.
Thank you so much.
To help her community survive the next heat wave.
Wow. Are they pretty light?
Oh, yeah. Because she says the death toll from the last one is so devastating.
They said, well, the number's 116. I said, you gotta be kidding me. And so from there, I was tuned all the way in.
Here they are. She began taking matters into her own hands.
I just grab a card and I fill out the names, addresses, phone numbers of folks. We were able to help get fans and air conditioners to about 200 people.
She wanted to do something after what happened in late June.
More than 100 deaths across the Pacific Northwest.
It is Portland's all-time record high ever.
Punishing heat in the Pacific Northwest led to pavement buckling, a streetcar cable melting. At hospitals, there were thousands of emergency room visits, and there were hundreds of deaths. A recent study examining heat exposure in urban areas across the country found that that kind of extreme heat can be more dangerous depending on your zip code.
There are certain areas that are hotter than others. That's for sure. You seriously could start East County and drive your way through Portland and Southwest and feel the difference in temperatures. It's ridiculous.
That's because places with less tree canopy, more pavement, and large buildings retain heat, creating urban heat islands like you find in Portland's Albina area, where Bird's family has roots.
It's a layered issue that did not have to happen.
Part of that layered issue involves redlining. It was banned in 1968, but for decades, redlining was a common discriminatory practice of disinvestment, with lenders being discouraged from issuing mortgages in certain neighborhoods. In Portland, banks used this map to highlight what they considered the city's best areas in green and hazardous areas in red. Albina, with a large black population at the time, was formerly redlined, with the particular hazard being listed as racial. And back then, there were restrictions on where communities of color could live because of covenants.
And it would say things like no Negro, no Mexicans, no Japanese could buy a home. These signs are all part of the historic Black Williams Art Project.
Kayeen Talton Davis and her husband Cleo live in Albina and say over the years a community was built here.
This sign is about the Urban League, and this really kind of talks about equal housing.
But racist housing policies of the past, combined with construction projects that demolished homes, led to more pavement and less parks, making Albina disproportionately warmer today.
Between the 1950s and 60s is when the Oregon Department of Transportation began running highways. I-5 just ran a trench right through our neighborhood.
Right now, Lower Albina is mostly concrete, and concrete definitely holds more heat.
There are studies tracking neighborhood temperatures here in Portland.
So this is looking at the temperature results for the afternoon and the evening.
And in King County, too.
These paved areas heat up during the middle of the day.
A year ago, Laura Whiteley-Bender, King County's climate preparedness specialist, was part of a heat mapping project. On a July day, drivers set out on 15 predetermined routes at the same time, collecting temperature data and coming up with these results. North Seattle in light blue was much cooler than South Seattle. It was also hotter along the Renton, Kent, and Auburn corridor, all places where there are larger populations of communities of color. Across the county, at the same point in time, there was a nearly 24-degree difference.
We were expecting to see the urban heat island effect. I think we were surprised at how large the temperature difference was. We were also surprised just to see how clearly it stood out.
That's why when temperatures hit triple digits in June, the heat was more deadly in some zip codes than others.
As the event set up, it was sobering.
Have we seen temperatures like that here before?
We have not. We broke our records in multiple ways. We know with climate change that we expect to see, and we are seeing, more frequent, more intense heat wave events.
Every time I think about it, people died because they were hot in their homes. It makes no sense to me.
There are efforts underway in Washington and Oregon to plant more trees and find long-term solutions.
I've been out until like 1:30 in the morning delivering air conditioners and fans.
But Bird has no time to wait. She's too busy getting ready for the next round of unhealthy heat.
What we do know, there's going to be another heat wave. And so now you have some of the folks who have been the most targeted, living in an area where you can't even get relief from heat. It's very sad.
That's why she's here.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Doing all she can.
That's what it's all about. I cannot read another report that a person died because of heat. That's crazy.
All right, thanks for being with us. Stay with us. One more break. We're going to address some comments and questions when we come back and finish this story. I wanted to get to comments, but I'm told I talk too much. We're out of time. I honestly, we were out of time before I even started telling you we're out of time. So thank you for being with us. Keep the questions and stuff coming in. We're going to continue to implement that in our coverage as we always do. Use that hashtag, HeyDan. I'll see you tomorrow. I'll answer extra questions tomorrow. How about that? I promise. Extra ones.